Sonic has had a rough transition to 3D, a phrase that any Sonic fan on the internet should be more than aware of. This exact phrase was brought up in almost every Sonic video essay from the 2010s, so much so that it basically became ingrained into part of the franchise's identity there for a bit. It's been said so much that it's now cliche to talk about it being cliche. Anyways, what am I getting at? Like always, I'm going to largely skip through the preamble. You've seen the title of this video, meaning you know what I'm going to be answering here. Getting out of the way, like, subscribe, comment, and whatnot, and if you would be so kind as to join the Discord server link in the description, it would be great to enlarge the size of my brain-dead community. Also, I've got a Patreon and channel memberships. If you subscribe to either one of them, you get early access to videos. Yep, that'd be pretty cool, so yep, give me money, please. Anyways, to answer this question of did Sonic have a rough transition to 3D, we need to first look at his, you guessed it, transition into 3D. Actually, I'm just fucking with you. Let's look at Sonic 1. Sonic 1 took the world by storm and turned Sega, well, at least Sonic, into a household name. You all likely know how ferocious the console wars of the 90s were. It was a time where Sega was genuinely above Nintendo, and that meant something. The key to Sega's success was Sonic. That game was a phenomenon so crazy the closest thing to it was the success of Mr. Plumber shit himself. Sonic got Sega's foot in the door, and because of this, they had to keep the ball rolling. While subsequent entries, 2, 3, Knuckles, and CD, would all sell noticeably worse than Sonic 1, it still sold a shit ton. Each new entry would keep the Genesis selling and cement Sega as one of the video game companies next to Nintendo. The constant release of quality Sonic games would be credited for that. Sonic 1 dropped in 1991, followed by Sonic 2 just later in 1992. CD, you might be the best in the franchise, but financially, you're inadequate. And then there was but a 2-year gap from both 2 to 3 and Knuckles in the ripe year of 1994. The momentum didn't stop. Literally. Year after year, there were quality titles releasing in the franchise, that's including Spinball, and at most, there was a 2-year gap. However, the year is 1994, and if you've been keeping track, then that means a little console called the PlayStation just entered the ring with these fancy new 3D graphics. This isn't your granddad's Zelda, we're dealing with gore and light profanity now. The immediate success of the PlayStation made virgins around the world antsy. After they saw what graphics could be, well damn, I want everything in 3D now. And so the next big shift in the medium happened. 3D. Nintendo got to work on the Nintendo Ultra 64, you should change that name, and Sega got to work on the Sega Saturn. It was only 32-bit. I'm not saying you couldn't make good 3D games on a 32-bit console, I'm just confused. The fact Sega already had a 32-bit add-on to the Genesis, the 32X, I don't get it. But who even cares? This doesn't matter, I just wanted to bring that up. As long as the games are good, why would I care? It could be 2 bits for all I care, but if the games are sucking me off good enough, I'll be happy. That's right, I'd be fine if the Saturn was a crack whore. Anyways, the Saturn needed to sell, as Sega started to falter after Sonic 3. This was likely more inevitability than preventable, but let's run with it. They needed a showstopper for the Sega Saturn, and so Sonic Extreme was put into development. This was supposed to be the next big Sonic game. Adoy! There was a lot of writing on this game. It had to simultaneously prove that Sonic wasn't a fad and could work in a 3D environment, while also selling an entire generation of consoles. In 1996, it was cancelled. Alright, well this just so happens to throw a wrench into the whole plan of longevity, because knock knock, it's 1996, and everybody else has pretty much already made their leap to 3D. Sega is late. Momentum was keeping them alive. The constant output of Sonic games was what kept Sega in the eyes of the public. Not only has it been 2 years without a Sonic game, this new Sonic game just got cancelled, and now it's the start from square one. We haven't, oh! The Sega Saturn recently released, and it has no killer software, no must-haves, none of that. Sega scrambled for something, and in January 1996, development began on Sonic 3D Blast. It would release later that year on both Genesis and Sega Saturn, but, like, come on. This game, regardless of what you think of it, was not a recipe for success. It was pseudo 3D, not even full blown. It wasn't really groundbreaking. 3D in this style had already been faked before. This was more of a half step at the time than anything. If you enjoyed the game, that's fine, but you need to realize that in 1996, Nintendo had Super Mario 64, and Sega had Sonic 3D Blast. Okay. Back to square one. The Saturn was a flop. Fuck it. Start over. Who cares? Sega starts working on a brand new console, the Sega Dreamcast, and it's actually 64 bits this time. They made it imperative, though, that alongside the release of the console, the next big Sonic game had to be there with it. So, around late 1996 to early 1977, I think I made a typo, Sonic Adventure began development. This isn't a video covering the development of any of these games though, so we're just skipping right past that to the release date. The Sega Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure released in the United States in 1999. Now, the Dreamcast was pretty much a step up in every way from the Saturn, but that Sonic game, that's where it was at. This wasn't just a new Sonic game, it damn near reinvented everything. Voice acting, new character designs, and most importantly, fully 3D. This was an insane step forward for the franchise. Vast stages, multiple Vast stages, multiple playable characters showcasing different aspects and playstyles the Dreamcast could offer, like gunplay and fishing on top of the high-speed Sonic platform you'd expect. These large hub worlds full of life with heavy credit done by the NPCs that inhabit them. All of this was amazing, but it was just too late. 3 years since 3D became the norm. 3 years since the release of Mario 64. 5 years since the last Sonic game. While 3D was still all the rage, it wasn't brand new anymore. Sega missed out on the 3D craze. While Sonic Adventure sold pretty well, it was nowhere near enough to save the Dreamcast. Sega tried as they could to revitalize interest in it, but they could only do so much. The downfall of Sega can be contributed to poor planning, inexperienced developers, bad timing, but maybe most important of all, this fucker. Sonic was Sega, and to have him nearly completely absent during the most important, opportunistic period in the company's life completely messed them up. The longest wait we had from main Sonic games before Adventure was 2. Not only is 5 years a long time, it's a long time especially when people were getting antsy. Everyone was wondering where's Sonic, and by the time Sega answered, it was too late. Sonic 3D Blast was a flop, and while Adventure is received generally well today, it couldn't save Sega. Now this begs the question, did Sonic have a rough transition to 3D? Now, I know I just described how Sonic ruined an entire company, but let's think for a minute about the actual games that released during this transition for a second. After Sonic and Knuckles, we had Sonic 3D Blast and Sonic Adventure. Sonic 3D Blast may be a stinker, sure, but Sonic Adventure? It's aged for sure, but to group this in with a bad transition seems silly, right? I think the main reason this term exists in the first place is because of Sonic Adventure and the stigma around the franchise. Think about it like this. You had people like Game Grumps who are genuinely horrible at video games and over-exaggerate their frustrations and intentionally try to break games for content screaming, "This game sucks!" I'm not gonna sit here and deny the fact that this game has its fair share of jank. It does. What I'm saying is that Let's Players of the time would exaggerate how jank the game actually was and try to turn small problems into large ones. There's so many glitches here, or Big is horrible, he totally ruins the game. Things like this would become the mainstream's opinion of this game, and because of that, you get people who never even played it talking about how bad the game was. The glitches in this game are very few and far between, and if you're encountering a lot, the chances are you were probably searching for him. Big is pretty annoying, sure, but he takes up legitimately around 20 minutes of total playtime. Takes like these made Adventure a way worse game in hindsight, and I only think we're starting to see opinions shift recently as the franchise has begun to be seen in a more positive light. So in this regard, no, I don't necessarily think Sonic had a rough transition to 3D. On the other hand, however, looking at just the games that released doesn't give us the full picture. Sonic Extreme and its cancellation essentially killed Sega. The wait between releases killed Sega, and it all came back to Sonic. They struggled to get Sonic working in 3D, so much so, like you've seen, an entire game was cancelled 2 years in development. This is where things get tricky. Sonic's transitions to 3D killed Sega. Yet, as a consumer, we got Sonic and Knuckles, followed up by a spin-off that was a bit of a misfire, and then Sonic Adventure. So what's up with this rough transition talk we hear? Because I seriously doubt that when Game Grumps or whoever were talking about it, they were talking about how Sonic Extreme killed Sega. Hell, I doubt they even knew it existed. They just didn't like Sonic Adventure, I guess. I don't even know what the goddamn argument means anymore. What the hell does rough transition even mean in these scenarios? Are we talking about the franchise's struggle to find its footing in 3D? Are we talking about the rocky road that was Sonic Extreme and the consequences it would have on the company? Are we just talking about the quality of games? Yeah, it's that one. It's the last one. I guarantee people say Sonic had a rough transition to 3D because they didn't like Sonic Adventure 1. I fucking guarantee it. Nobody cares about Sega or whatever. It's all about the games. And Let's Players in the 2010s did not like Sonic Adventure. So, what's the answer to this video? This arbitrary topic that, in all honesty, is likely purely subjective, and regardless, is objectively unimportant. Probably a little, yeah. I mean, if we're talking strictly games, I don't think so, but we can't just pick and choose here, it's all or nothing. I think it's fair to call something rough if it basically fucks over a whole company. Well, what do you guys think? Do you all think that Sonic had a rough transition to 3D? Why or why not? I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this, as I think this topic is very subjective. If you made it to the end, thanks, it truly means a lot. If you enjoyed, please consider liking the video, comment, subscribing, or whatever. And if you want to go the extra mile, please become a patron or channel member. I'll see you guys all later. Peace.